Okay, can you see his ear? Can you see? It's Jasper. Who else but my Jasper? He's always into everything, this guy. And he's getting so heavy. He snacks all the time. Say hi, Jasper. He's purring. I try to get you to hear him if I could. Yeah, I know. Bizarre way to start a YouTube video. But again, I've got the time to do it, and I'm kind of running amok with my YouTube videos. So I've been looking at my analytics, and my second most popular is the video that I did on the fact that you're always you, even when you feel like you've been gutted, literally and figuratively. I don't know what God's going to do with these little things that I'm doing on YouTube, but it's very interesting, my walk with Him right now, because, you know, financially, I'm not quite so well off right now, and I've explained that in other videos that I've done today, and I'm not worried about it. I'm not one bit worried about it, because I've seen what God has already done in my life, and I know that there's a song, He'll do it again. Just take a look at where you are now and where you were then. I think the first time I ever heard that song, it was by the Golden State Baptist Choir, and y'all look that up. It's a wonderful song. He'll do it again, oh Lord, He'll do it again. Kind of lost my voice these past few years, but anyway, yeah, I've seen it, so I'm not worried. I know He's already in my future. I know He's going to take care of things. And but I wanted to kind of go back to this issue, because everybody seemed to be a little more interested in this than the other topics that I've discussed. And this is something that's becoming a little more clear to me, even in very challenging times now. And obvious, I've done a lot of healing in probably the past year. For 2 years, I spent every day, and I'm sure so many of you that you're not going to survive this. You're not going to survive the dissolution of your life as you knew it. You're just not going to survive it. But with the help of God, you can, and with the help of God, you will. And I cannot tell you how many times, and perhaps you all have too, you look back at when you were a kid. And I know we all get nostalgic about our childhoods and what have you. For me, the most nostalgic period was when I was a kid in the town that my uncle moved us to. I was 8 years old. My mother was in very bad shape, and he did a very extraordinary thing. He said, I'm going to buy you a one-bedroom trailer. We're going to find a place in town to park it, and I'm going to give you this little beat-up Toyota for you to drive, and you're just going to rest for a couple of months. And so that's how I moved to this particular town when I was 8 years old, and I stayed there until I was 17, and those were the happiest, 9 years of my life? And I look back on that. I think we all do, and we're like, oh Lord, if we could just go back. If we could just go back. If we could have the unquestioning faith in you that we had as children. Because we're all aware. Unless we were in very desperate circumstances, yes, my family was dysfunctional. I've discussed that before. And unless you were in wildly dysfunctional families and you just never knew where your mouthful was coming from, and yes, my half-brother did grow up that way. He never knew where his next mouthful was coming from. He never knew where he was going to be sleeping that night, if he was going to be sleeping in the car, or if he was going to be sleeping in the bed. That poor guy grew up that way. And so many of you have. I can only speak of my personal experience with authority. So that's what I'm doing here. I've looked back so often at that period of my childhood, and at the back porch, my uncle built a very sturdy wooden, you could say it was just a very small little deck with steps leading down to the ground. 3 steps in all. I would sit on that porch. We lived right on an alley. I loved my alley. And I would gaze up at that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful blue sky, and I would look up at the clouds, and I would try to remember the, cumulus and stratus and cirrus and all of those. And I just, the leaves and the trees, the vivid green, the blue of the sky, the white of the clouds, or if it were rolling in for a storm, I could take pleasure in that. And I still love lightning. I love it when it kind of looks like it's behind the clouds. And then there was the wisteria bush. And it was really funny about that wisteria bush, because down right in the middle of the alley were the trash cans, and the city trucks would come down that alley to the trash cans that were midway on that alley, and behind the trash cans was a beat up fence that was, as I remember, it was mostly chicken wire. And so it was just, it was all leaning forward against the trash cans, and there was this big, gigantic wisteria bush. And I can remember sitting out there on the porch behind the house at the back door, and I can still smell that wisteria bush. And you go down there to the trash cans, and sometimes that's in the summer, that trash was just unreal. And so the smell of the wisteria and the trash was sometimes pretty interesting. But you know what? Those were such happy memories. We had a clothesline. And I love hanging my clothes out on a clothesline. Unfortunately, I don't have that here. But if God ever gives me the opportunity, boy, I'm going to have me a clothesline again. I can remember getting up really early and deliberately going out to the front. There was a small yard that the landlady had there. She had 3 parking spaces for mobile homes. And we were on the back right at the alley. They formed a horseshoe, and the other 2 faced the real street. And I was always so grateful I lived on the alley. But I can remember going out there first thing in the morning in bare feet and running through the front yard just to be able to feel and smell the wet earth and the dew on my feet. And as a child, I can remember really truly believing that, and I don't want to sound outlandish or mystical or anything like that, but to me as a child, God was in the wisteria fragrance. God was in the beautiful blue sky. God was in the rolling cumulus clouds. God was in the joy of the wet grass and the dew on my feet. God was in all of that. And I never worried about where my next mouthful was coming from. I never worried. I was in that house for 8 years. 9. And I never worried about, and I think about my half-brother, and it's like, Lord, I'm so sorry. I mean, I did not know at the time it was like that for him, but, we weren't raised together. And, but I wasn't worried about where I was going to go to sleep at night. I wasn't worried about whether or not there was going to be a roof over my head. I wasn't worried about whether or not I was going to be living in the car. Do I think about it? Yes, I believe I admitted that on one of my videos. I have actually watched videos of people who live in their car because, right now I'm virtually unemployed. I might wind up living in my car, but you know what? I live in an area that is zoned subtropical, and even in the winters, it's fairly survivable. Now, it does get drastically cold sometimes, but not very often. And, it's like, Lord, I can do that if I have to. It's going to be a challenge to stay clean, but I can do that. But I've passed the point of really worrying about it. I don't worry about it. I don't stress about it. I don't stress anymore about the future. And I don't know how many times in the past, even before the divorce, I would wish so much that I could go back to that place where, Lord, why can't I just trust you? Why can't I just trust you? That I don't have to worry about these things. And do I know that he says, what does he say? Be anxious for nothing? And he really does mean that. I'm your father. I'm going to take care of you. I love you. And maybe it's something that we just have to learn. But, there's so much we lose as children. We just lose qualities that we should never lose. I don't know, maybe life just does it to us, but I'm back at that point where I was as a child, and I know that I don't have to worry about these things. God's already got it covered. He's already made the decision. He's already laid the groundwork. He's already made all of the resources that I'm going to need at my disposal. And I think this is part of what I mean when I say that you're still you. You're still you. And yes, I know we're supposed to grow up and be responsible and be mature and grow in the Lord. Yes, I know that. But somewhere I think, especially in abusive relationships, we lose that. Or, to put it more pertinently, we think we lose that. I think what happens is it just becomes so buried in the abuse and the anxiety and the worry and the fear that comes along with that you forget that it's there. And so I'm getting back to the point where when it's raining and I have to go outside when it's raining and I can smell the wet earth and feel the raindrops on my skin and listen to the, and when I'm inside, I'm listening to the rain hit the windows or hit the roof. And in a very literal sense, I'm going back finally to that place that I felt so nostalgic about. That place where, and I don't know how I've ever felt about that old saying, God's in his heavens, all's right with the world, because we know that all is not right with the world. But we do know that God is in his heaven. And we do know that he is supreme in the affairs of men and nations. And we do know that he's given us his word, and in his word are his promises, and one of his promises is he cannot deny himself. And so, dear Christian, I just want to encourage you to keep on, because these experiences are, sometimes I think of them almost like being scorched. I've been scorched accidentally. I've been scorched. And it's really like being scorched. These experiences are really like being scorched. And yeah, you do wind up with ugly scars. And yes, you do have nerve damage. But you know what? You're still God's child. And that's not going to change. And it sounds like such a cliche because everybody says it. And when you start on this journey, you're going to get so sick of hearing God is letting you go through this because he wants to bring something out in you. You don't want to hear that because your world has fallen apart and you'll never be the same again. And you never will. But at this point in my journey, I'm not sure that's not a good thing. I'm not sure that's not a good thing because there is a part of me that is closer to God than I've ever been. And there's a part of me that's more mature than I've ever been, namely because I've been alone, except for the Lord Jesus. And then I've discovered that, I'll tell you this. I don't know if I should say this or not. When I was a kid, I was raised for my first 5 years with my cousin. And they were a boy and a girl. They're still living. She is 2 years older than I am, and he is 9 months older than I am. And he could not pronounce my name properly. So somewhere along the road, it wound up as Winnie. And then it wound up as Pooh Bear. And so when he and I reconnected after my first daughter was born, he came running down the stairs and he's like, Pooh Bear! Pooh Bear didn't die. Pooh Bear's still living. Pooh Bear is still there. She's still the same Pooh Bear that she always was. She just somehow got buried in all the trauma. And so I think that many, many in my audience, if not all, who have dedicated their lives to the Lord Jesus Christ, who are washed in his blood, will find that out. You'll find that that person that you were so nostalgic about for years is still there. Is still there. I mean, I watch, and I love people. I love people. I got to meet a new client today, and like I said, maybe in another video, they don't need me that often for that long, but hey, you know what? I'm grateful for it. And I just love to be around people. I'm sociable. And I'm quirky as well. I'm very quirky. I think everybody's learned that by now. But, you know, when I see these videos, I'm like, oh, my soul. I'm here. I'm here. And you're here too. So just take heart. It's just a matter of, you know, the husband and I, we did flips. We started flipping properties in 2007. And before that, his family had always done rentals. Especially in those rentals, you go in there to clean up and paint, and you would realize that you were painting over 10 or 15 years of paint that was already there. And that's what the Lord's doing. He's chipping away those layers of paint. That's really the best way that I can describe what I believe is happening to me, and it's going to happen to you. And you know how we are in this day and age. We love distressed. We love aged. We love textured. We love all of that stuff. And the Lord's going to get to that bottom layer. And you're going to be aged, and you're going to be worn, and you're going to be textured, but you're still that same person. I love you all so much. And this is the third rant I've done today. So thank you all for bearing with me. I may see you before the night's over with.